So welcome to episode 2 of the Franchise Marketer podcast. I'm joined today by Melissa Laurie. Now, Melissa, people might not know you in my network anyway, because you're based in Asia. So you're Asia's leading, expert in short form content. But before you moved over there, we've had some discussions and you did a bit of training with our Jim's Dog Wash franchisees. And I think you're really early as an agency on this as well. And you've worked with some massive brands like, Luxury Escapes, UPS, I think RMIT, done a fantastic job with their TikTok account. And you're doing a lot of really good, I think, future leading stuff with short form content, and people are slowly catching up. But you've been in this space for a long time, and you've been on Social Media Examiner podcast, which is a massissive thing. I think you've spoke there, haven't you, at the conference?
Yes, that time.
Like if you work in marketing, or social media, you know how big that is as an achievement as well. So well done on that. So great to have access to you, so I can ask you a whole bunch of questions to hopefully help our audience, which is mainly people who work in franchising. So first of all, Mel, do you want to just talk a little bit about yourself and give an introduction of your business and how you got into doing what you've been doing?
Yeah, sure. So my background has been in media. So I worked at different media companies like Fairfax Media, and then ended up at TripAdvisor, where I was there for many years. And during that time, COVID happened, and there was a lot of doom and gloom that was happening in the press. And so I wanted to make a small change. So I came up with this idea of sharing all the good that was happening in the world. And I filmed these short videos, which I posted on LinkedIn. I don't know how I had the confidence, but I just sort of went out and did it. And I was amazed by how much engagement these videos got on LinkedIn. Like, this is quite a few years ago. And so this started my passion for video content. And when my husband and we moved from Australia to Singapore, I launched Oystery Media, and our whole focus is that we specialize in short videos. We don't do anything else. That's our craft. And the name Oystery really comes from that. We believe if companies know how to take advantage of short videos, then the world can be your oyster. So as you mentioned, we've been very popular with some of the world's leading brands. We work with lots of Fortune 500 companies because of our sort of specialization with short form video.
Now, I'm going to say, let's just jump straight into it. Social search. So this is a term that people might not be familiar with. We're familiar with it. So can you just explain what social search is and how search is moving with this sort of stuff?
Of course. So the best way to think about social search is that people are using platforms like Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and so on to conduct a search. So like how you would search on Google, say, they're doing these searches now on social media. And so you might be wondering, like, why is this? Because why wouldn't you just search on Google? So let me just paint a picture. If you were looking to go on a holiday, let's say you go onto a traditional search platform like Google, you type in, I'll say Bali, because I know, Aussies, we love to travel to Bali. So best hotel in Bali, for example. And if you could just imagine when you click search on Google, you're going to see a lot of sponsored listings right at the top, which often just scroll past. And as we keep scrolling, there's a lot of highly optimized articles or online travel agents. And all we want to do is get some genuine, up-to-date information about what some of the best hotels are in Bali. And then often what happens is when you click on one of these optimized links and you go to a web page, you're bombarded by ads. There's probably a pop-up. There's a lot of text, and it's become a really poor user experience. So this really underpins why people are now searching on platforms like TikTok and Instagram. They're incredibly powerful for giving us instant answers and highly visual videos. The content is also up to date as well. And I think what's really interesting for people to note is that for the first time in a decade, Google's search share dipped below 90%, which is huge. And so the search traffic isn't just disappearing. Of course, there's AI and ChatGPT and so forth, but a part of that is social search as well. And then this is just a big opportunity for all of us business owners, that it's a new way to get in front of a fresh new audience.
And you got the short form video tab now in Google search results, and you had videos getting indexed a lot of the times. now for people. If people
Yeah.
have a lot of content up about themselves, they'll see the video, the short form video come in the feed, which I think is a really good indication. Now, I was going to say as well with TikTok. So you're really early on TikTok. I wish I was consistent with TikTok back in 2020 or whenever I started stuff around. It would have been a lot further ahead. But it was. But yeah, I was going to say with TikTok, can you just explain to this is a franchise marketing, so people who work in marketing at franchise, a lot of them will have a TikTok already for the B2C side. But do you want to just talk about the platform overall, how it's shifting and how they can maximize it?
Okay, great. So TikTok, when it first was created, it was very much more like an entertainment platform. So when you go onto the TikTok app, you land on something, it's like the feed, it's called the For You page, where the TikTok algorithm will serve you things based on your own personal preferences. Now, this is important because it's very different to how you'll serve content on, say, Instagram, Facebook, or even LinkedIn. And this is why there's been a lot of discussion about the TikTok algorithm. So just to explain this, often on like Instagram, Facebook, etc., you're getting served content or shown content that your friends or family members might like, or your mum or dad. So it's not as relevant to you. Whereas TikTok, it's based on your own searching behavior. So that's the first thing. And so when you land on TikTok, there's also a search icon up at the top right. So we go back to that best Bali hotel example. You can type that into the search browser. And what you will see is other search terms that people are searching for as well. And so when you click on that, what TikTok is going to show you instantly is all these incredibly engaging videos where it's people sharing their experience in Bali or giving you room tours with some of the hotels they've stayed at and so forth. So as you scroll down, you can click on one of these videos and watch and find out more information. And what's also really unique is that you're seeing a lot of comments as well. So people are very engaged in the community. They're often asking questions, leaving comments, and you don't get this on a traditional web page. So that's essentially like the experience. I know that TikTok's making huge plays to really go after the search market. And I was reading a statistic just recently from TikTok that said that 1 in 4 users on TikTok, when they first open their app, in the first 30 seconds, they're searching something. So this really shows like the power of being able to create short videos that align to your business and are answering questions so that you can get into those top positions. It's like free marketing. Job opportunity.
Yeah, and I think Gary Vee was saying the other day, even followers don't matter anymore because it's interest-based targeting. So if you create a really good bit of content and it can just go viral, and you don't need to have that massive following anymore. You can build a following really quickly, and that will happen based on that. But moving more towards the interest-based social media, as what you said before in the past, was what your friends liked, and you could see that. Now everything's moving towards what you're interested in. It's going to serve you more and more of that. So that's a great opportunity for companies to get discoverability. Like if they're searching for Bali, is that how it works? If they search for Bali luxury escapes, obviously there's a For You page, but it's going to know that it's being searching for Bali. And as they then, let's say keep scrolling through, they're going to get served more from other businesses they might not be aware of if they've got good content coming into their feed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you want to make sure that your videos are optimized for social search. We could chat a bit more about that. Something that you said that I just want to hop back to is also just about Google and the new short video tab. Google, for those that don't know, that Google's done this quite quietly where they've launched a new tab. So if you're on Google, you see like maps or news or images along the tabs, and now there's short videos. And when you click on that, Google's actually feeding in videos from Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, which they own. So I think that is a huge indicator just to show how powerful short video is as a medium to be created.
That's a great point. And now, the way I look at things now, it's everything's a signal for Google. So it doesn't have to be a blog post. Blog post and links was the thing back in the day. It still is for SEO. But now everything you do, every interaction you take, every photo you upload to a social media platform, every video you upload to a social media platform is a Google signal for your business or for your brand. That's sort of the way I look at it now. And you can tell they're obviously getting a bit serious with it. And obviously they've got YouTube Shorts, which is their own thing, which they own. But you mentioned, real quickly, I want to talk about optimizing for social search.
Yeah.
So how do you go about doing that for your clients, and what do you recommend?
Yeah, sure. So I think the way that you need to think about it is, I guess if you could think about like the older days, it's similar to like when we were all creating blogs and you would want to optimize your blog for Google. So just think of it like that. So when it comes to video, when you go on to, let's say, take TikTok as the example, you can search for a keyword or word that relates to your business, and you can actually see like the questions that people are asking. You can also use other tools like, let's say, ChatGPT, and ask, what are the 10 most common questions about pet washing or getting your dog trimmed, for example. And so you essentially want to be responding to these questions and creating videos that do that. So that's the first thing. Just consider how you can create videos that answer people's questions. I think that's a basic thing to consider. And, if you're a business owner, you might have a list of questions that are commonly asked. So you could even start with that as well. The second thing that is important is that, especially when you're starting out, you can start the video that includes those key words. So for example, if we just going back to that hotel example, if it was best hotels in Bali, you could start with, is this the best hotel in Bali? Like at the start. So that's what we often do in a lot of the short videos that we create. A couple of other things as well is you could add big billboard text, which is the big text that you see often on short videos. The reason we call it a billboard text at Oystery Media is because imagine you're driving down a freeway or a highway and you've got a second to look up at the billboard. That's essentially what we think about when someone is scrolling on these social platforms. You've got a moment to earn the viewer's attention. So the billboard text can reinforce like what the person is searching. So it could be best hotel in Bali 2025 as an example. And then finally, don't overlook the caption. This happens a lot. People put so much effort into creating the video, and the caption is what you see as you're scrolling or you watch the video. So just give that some thought as well. Again, it could be best hotel Bali, you must know, for example. So those are just some examples of what you can do to optimize your videos. So you're essentially telling the platform what your video is about. And then also with the viewer, if they're searching for that, you're letting them know that they're in the right spot and they should keep watching your video.
It's a great advice. And I love in TikTok, they've got a really good, in the analytics, they've got that retention. I think it's on the second screen, and you actually see your video will play and it'll show you the retention rate. And it can be very depressing because like you think, oh, everyone's going to watch the video, and you see after the first second, 25% drop off, and it actually shows the graph as the video plays to where people drop off. I think it's an amazing feature, and it's really good. It's hard to look at sometimes because you assume, everyone likes your video, but you can see literally the moment in real time where people are dropping off. And I think it's a really unique feature they provided, because I think the analytics on it is a really good thing for people to look at, just in terms of how valuable it is. Because we did a video the other day of Jim. I looked at the analytics, and like 12% was over 50, I think it was 45, or I think it was 55 plus was the age. And over 12% of the people who actually watched the video were 55 or older. And that's a 200,000 view video, which I thought was pretty cool.
You sort of spark something in my mind as well, that even though we're talking about how to optimize your video to social search, you have to be able to hold the viewer's attention. And so something else that is a big tip is with to ensure that retention is also it's something called pattern interruption. So things like you might have seen this on social media where someone's walking along the street and they're filming, talking to the camera, and they've got AirPods on. The reason why that's good for pattern interruption is because there's things happening often in the background as well. It keeps it quite interesting. So just make sure that when you're creating videos, you need to really consider how you're holding the attention of the viewer. And that's just one quick example.
I always see the green screen videos where someone will do that move every 5 seconds to somewhere else. Even though it doesn't change, they're moving their head from here to here and all that sort of stuff as well. And I think another good one for people to look at, I don't know what you think on this, is I've seen a lot of accounts blow up. They're like lawyers or they're accountants, and all they literally do is respond to comments. They don't do any like skits or anything like that. Like, they've got, all they literally do is people will leave comments about tax questions or whatever, and they literally just use the reply function and respond to that question. And that's all they do. and they do like 5 or 6 of them a day, and they have their booking link in their bio, and it seems to work really well.
Yeah. And I think it's, it makes sense, right? Like this is, we're spending time on these social platforms, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, even LinkedIn's going to be launching a TikTok style feed. So if you can be showing up regularly, and when I say regularly, it's not just posting once in a blue moon, like consistently and giving genuine advice, then you're building a relationship with the viewer. You're building that trust and credibility, and then you're more likely to get the lead. So yeah, so it sort of makes complete sense, and it's quite clever, that strategy.
So we'll talk about pattern interruption. We've just had one, so the Zoom just cut out. But do you want to talk about that again, about pattern interruption? Because you're right, people will be familiar. They see people walking and all that sort of stuff. So just talk about that. And is that something? How do you work that in when you're doing your stuff for your clients?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Really good question. Okay. So even though a short video looks very natural, there is so much that goes on behind the scenes. And so when we create videos for our partners, we do a lot of the social search research. We understand what people are looking for on these platforms. Then we do all the scripting, we come up with the ideas, and we make sure that there's certain magic touches or elements that go into these videos. And one of those is pattern interruptions. So essentially what it is that you've earned the viewer's attention, and now you need to retain it. And so people can easily just swipe away. So different ways you can do this, and especially if someone is starting out and they're new to creating short videos, a great video to start with is when you're walking on the street and you've got your phone and you're talking to camera. A tip here is that you want to use AirPods if you've got them, because it means the microphone will be a bit crisper. But essentially, if you imagine that you're walking down the street, there's often stuff happening in the background. So that's just a very simple example of pattern interruption. Another style is that green screen style of video, or as my colleague calls it, floating head video, where you see a website or something in the background, but the person is sort of pointing, it's the person's face, and they're often moving their position in the video. It's something that I actually do a lot in my TikTok videos as well. I love a green screen video. So it's, really good if you've got sort of a website or you're selling products or services.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say then, for your businesses, when you do all the social research, are you basing it based on the videos that get the most views, or how do you decide on what to actually then create for a business?
Yeah, so we've got our own tool where we have a look at what's being searched across a lot of the different social platforms. So we look at that, and then we do have a look at the videos that are in the top positions as well. But beyond that, we also look at the engagement. Like, are there lots of other questions coming through? So there are a few tactics that we use. So that's one part of it. And then another big part of it is also the trend style videos. So there's a lot of different trends that you can do on these platforms. So we also are thinking about videos where we can ensure that our client partners are in the moment and are topical based on what's happening.
And with the videos itself, obviously you get a plan, then you got to find creatives to do it. So how do you then source and actually get the content created? Like, how do you look for influencers, or are you just finding people just create UGC stuff, or what are you looking for?
Yeah, sure. So the style of content, we offer 3 services, but the style of content, I'll just talk to one of the services, which is what we call owned UGC, which UGC is user-generated content. And the reason why we call it owned UGC is because traditional UGC is, let's say you go out to a restaurant, you really like the restaurant, and you just post about it on your Instagram profile. The restaurant's not paying you, they haven't asked you to do anything, you're just the love of the brand or your experience. That is UGC. So what we do at Oystery Media is that we will create that style of content for the brand. We call it owned UGC because we're paying the creator. It's often a smaller creator with the follower count. It could be a creator that's got 500 followers or 300 followers. We don't mind because it's not going on their platform. We're looking for creators that align with the target audience of the brand, or also great at creating short videos. And so we've got a network of over 6,000 different creators that we work with around the world. We always have creators reaching out to us to work with us. And then we will brief it out. They will submit the videos, and then once it's approved by the brand, it goes on the brand's social channels. So that's sort of
Okay.
how it works.
That's a good term. So I never thought of it like that. So owned UGC, and that content, even though they might not have a big following, because let's say influencers do, because you're using the influencers audience to have them create content on that.
Yeah.
But you're getting the creator, you're looking for just more actually talented creators to create the actual asset that then the brand will then post on their accounts on their social media, and they own that one forever.
Of course, yeah. And I think a
Yeah.
good example is that we work with 3M and we worked across Post-it, which are the sticky notes. And so if you think about creating content and sharing like content, which is like back to school or preparing for university and talking about the different products, 3M doesn't have actors on staff or staff that are readily available to create these short videos. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good way to think about it. Like when companies can work with these smaller creators, you're getting these fresh content coming onto your own social channels, whether it's Instagram or TikTok, etc. And then you're getting lots of different people in your target audience: old, young, mums, uni students, etc.
I was going to say then as well. So you mentioned a term a lot that I've seen, which is EGC. Now for me, I call it FGC with what we do because it's franchise generated content or franchisee generated content. But UGC, EGC with employees, you're obviously doing a large amount of that. I think the same principles that you can talk about probably applies to franchisee generated content. So just talk about that sort of subjects for our audience.
Yeah. So EGC is employee generated content. And here's the thing. It doesn't matter if you're a small company or a large multinational. Everyone's got the same problem. And it's to feed these big social media beasts. And short videos are not going anywhere, right? They're only going to become more prevalent where people are spending their time. So one big shift in marketing that's been happening, and I personally don't think it's a trend. I think it's a shift, and it's the start, is that companies are now recognizing that their employees can create social media content. But there's a twist, because the old style of doing employee generated content was, let's say you have something at Jim's group, it's an event, and someone just posts on their LinkedIn profile and talks about the event. It's going on their own social profile. The new way to do employee generated content is when companies are training their staff members, teaching them how to create the videos as well, because there's a skill to do it. And then the videos are going on the brand's social channels. So a very big difference. So companies that are doing this at big organizations like PricewaterhouseCoopers, they have, you could have a look at their TikTok profiles. They've got quite a few. They do great employee generated content where they've got their staff members doing that. We offer training to companies to help them create employee generated content. We're training brands like the Hilton at the moment, where we help them level up their staff members with understanding that skill. But it's a huge opportunity for companies. And I'll just sort of reiterate, there's a lot of small businesses that are really tapping into this space as well.
I'm going to say as well, because my audience mainly works in franchising, so obviously they've got the office which can do it. But what about, and then they might be going, well, what about franchisees? Because everyone wants more franchisee content, and it can be a bit of a struggle. So what would you sort of advise around getting franchisee generated content? And like, what would you recommend in terms of how to build frameworks or guidelines around it?
Yeah, great. So the one big mistake that companies can make is that they just expect that because someone has a phone that anyone can just film videos. And there's, it's like going to the gym. You have to do the reps and you'll get better. So going back to your question, to set yourself up for success, it's like you would want to come up with content pillars and thought starter ideas to help share internally with what are some examples to create content on. So if you've got an example of like a business, I'm happy to just share something that I could recommend that they could create some content on without, knowing.
Well, let's just talk about, let's say, Jim's Cleaning. So we've got cleaning franchisees.
Yeah. Okay, great. So if it's Jim's Cleaning, I'd probably go with the angle that, look up on social search what people could be asking, most common questions. So I would have one content pillar, which is most common questions. So it could be wondering what type of products you should clean the bathroom with, So you're not actually selling, saying, book me to, for
Yep.
Jim's Clean, but you're giving like real advice, like, how do you clean a bathroom? How do you clean this? What's the best way to organize this? And so forth. So that's answering those questions and giving that educational content.
Mm.
Once you've got that alignment, the next part is that you need to do training. There's certain video styles that really lend themselves really well for employee generated content. That could be, as I mentioned, sort of, if you're out and about, it could be filming in a parked car that they do really well, walking on the street. If you wanted to involve different team members, something else that we've done with a university is where we actually have a question. We did this at RMIT Uni, where we asked the teachers, why did they decide to become a teacher? And we asked that to many different teachers and then snipped it all together, the response. So,
Yep.
So once you have that, then the videos would get created and then the team members would submit. When we work with companies, we do the final check and we do add some magic touches and then they're posted.
And what apps do you recommend for employee generated content? Is it CapCut or is there anything else? Or
So CapCut is a great editing tool. So there's a free version, a paid version as well. We would highly recommend it. We use that in our company. And really, like you would need to train on, or learn rather, about the basic editing for videos. So you don't need to do something overly polished. That's the beauty of these short videos. There's a huge opportunity where people really want to see like what happens behind the scenes of a company, and they want to see who works there as well. And so it's a really effective way to humanize your brand as well. Something else I might just touch on as well. So I mentioned about soft selling. So if you had team members that were creating videos or you're creating videos yourself, it is a great way to soft sell because you're showing your expertise in the content. Something else to consider is it's a great way to attract talent and also retain talent as well. There was really interesting data that came out, was published in Fast Company, where they shared that 58% of people, when they're looking for a job, are now looking on social media. They want to see what it's like to work at a company. And we know how expensive it is to recruit and hire someone and the time, and you still don't know if they're going to be a good fit and be able to do the work. So they're just a few things with the benefits of employee generated content.
with content creation for different platforms, so let's say if you obviously got Instagram, you got Facebook, you got YouTube Shorts, you've got even LinkedIn now, but you got TikTok. When you create a video for a client, do you create platform specific different edits, or you use the one edit across them, or you just create for one platform? What's your advice around that? I'd like you in terms of your opinion of how the algos differ when it comes to short form.
Yeah. I used to think more so that it had to be very specific to the platform, but over the years and us working across thousands of videos, I believe that you can use the same short video content across the different platforms. So we often work with a brand. We lead with the idea, lead with creating short video. And I use short video because it's easy to get into this habit of like saying reels or TikToks or YouTube shorts, like short video content, and you can get it across, you can post it across YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, etc. So, so I think that there's a lot of opportunity with just getting efficiency with creating that content and then posting it across your main social channels. And then also just being really familiar with the data. So we will track everything very closely and we'll see where the content's performing really well and on what platform, and use that insight to inform us as we sort of work with a partner.
And with your partners, I presume you always get the ROI question, or they sort of I presume they throw ROI. So how do you sort of talk about that in this world? Because that's the sort of a thing I think marketing executives and people who run companies sort of need to change a little bit their views about how they look at ROI, and this term zero-click marketing is obviously coming around, especially with AI and stuff. So how do you educate, or how do you talk about it when they go, right, we want to use Oystery Media to create this short form video, and they're going to then, well, what's the return on investment, which is a very typical question I presume you get. So how do you sort of talk about that with companies, and how do you explain it to them?
Yeah. So it's a good question. It's very dependent on the brand. We don't often get the ROI question as much as,
Good.
I come from a very performance background. But I think with the marketers that we work with and really forward thinking brands, they know this is where people are spending their time. So we we work with our partners, a lot of them long term, after they see the performance that we deliver. So we're very clear on what the sort of KPI is at the start. So let's say if you're launching on TikTok, you'd really want to focus on building a community and then also views as well. And then you can switch over to driving conversions. So it's much about that process. If you are just selling, it's people get really sick of that. And so it's important to have one pillar, which is really focused on selling, but then you need to balance out your other content pillars. Like, for example, ones like educational content would be a good example. And so that means that people keep coming back and recognize you as that thought leader in the space.
And it's a great opportunity just to get that touch point, be seen, 12, 15 times with providing general advice, and hopefully they can use you. Because I think that's the one thing where marketing is going to have to shift a bit with everything now. The platforms want people to stay on their platform. So clicks is a silly metric now because they want you to stay in Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, or whatever. So you've got to, how much are we influencing people in those different platforms with video content? And hopefully we see the brand lift, or we see increased brand queries to our site, sort of more how to judge it, I guess. But I was going to say with, so what were your thoughts on that?
Oh yeah, I think it's, a really good point. I just think if you think about it logically, like I come from as I mentioned, a performance background as well. But often someone will see something, or if you think about your own experience, you might see something, you might see a billboard ad, or, out on the street, or see something on TikTok, and then you decide to research it 3 months later, and you look it up on Google, and then you end up making the purchase. And then Google often is getting that last click, that transaction.
Right.
So I just think if you know your audience and you just think about it logically, and you think about where people are spending their time, and the fact that Google's launched a whole new tab, which is for short videos, I think that's the way that you really need to approach it. And then, of course, you can be tracking on your website, if you're driving to your website, to see where traffic's coming from, or if you have the ability, if you are Jim's pet wash or something, you can have that touch point with your customers and ask them, like, how did you hear about that? And that's really good data for you to know what's working or not.
I actually, because I did a social media session and training here. And I always I showed this guy, Jason, who's from Poolcare Division. He's had around 683 million views on TikTok. He's got a great account. And they always get one grizzled veteran who's 55 or worked in marketing 20 years ago, says, well, how many leads did he get from that video? I always get that question. He might have the video with 43 million views, and the question is, well, how many leads did he get from that video? So how would you explain it then? We've sort of touched on it, but how would you explain that to people who have that mentality still when it comes to short form content?
Yeah, I think that sort of leads on to what I mentioned about having that brand awareness and getting in the person's consideration set. Because, like someone might see that video and it's wintertime in Sydney or Melbourne, it's really cold, and they don't decide to reach out until it's summer, when they actually start to think about, it would be great to have a pool. So that's the way that I would consider it. And then going back to that business owner, I would recommend that he should just have that sort of check-in with his customers, just to see how they're learning more and hearing about his service as well.
That's a good bit of advice. So I always get that question. I'm trying to dispel it a bit. And I think people are slowly, hopefully, learning that it's, as you said, the consideration set's a really good bit of terminology there. I think getting into the consideration set with that piece of short form content for however long they watch your video, 7 seconds or 8 seconds. And because I've still got this thing as well when I ask you about traditional TV ad and let's say compared to this, because I think TV ads obviously got a lot more expensive. It seems to me now a lot of brands and creative agencies who've been the big players who charge a fortune are still really promoting these sorts of things. And you've still got a bit of an education gap, I would say, between, let's say, more experienced people who've been around for many years and let's say the people who work in your sort of space regarding where the better investment is. So how would you talk to someone about, let's say they go, right, we've got budget for TV and for short form, and we want to try short form. What would you sort of say to them about the differences about it and about maybe the better ROI you could maybe get from a short form?
Yeah, okay. I think it would come back to like who is their target audience to align with that sort of demographic. Even if you're targeting millennials or Gen Z, like you want to be looking seriously at a whole social media strategy. That's where you would be putting your budget towards. I yeah, I would, without knowing that detail, I would be leaning into short video because you can really invest in creating these videos and then getting it across your different you know, social channels. And if you are a business owner and you're managing it yourself, you can use like what it would take to spend a ton of money on a TV ad where you would have to wait for data. And I know that can be very convoluted, the data from TV, but you could actually pay someone, maybe a contractor, or that they could actually manage all the posting for you as well, just to take away that sort of admin brain. And then you're getting sort of real insights straight away. What I mean by that is on these social platforms, they make it really easy that you can get access to the analytics. So you can see what content's working and not. And then if you felt that, you're getting really good results from a sort of video and the TV audience aligns with your target audience, then you might consider in future just to get that massive spike of brand awareness. But at first point, I would strongly advise a social first strategy.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you said that because I think broadcast television has just gone up a lot more and people who are watching it is going down. So you've got a far more expensive product on broadcast media, but you got less of an audience on there. And I think with social, because the way it's a social, it's showing you interested based stuff. So if the person is interested in your service or interested in that category already, you create some great content. You can just serve it in there for a far lower cost to reach people. I think doing that sort of strategy as opposed to traditional broadcast media.
Yeah, exactly. And I think even just taking a step further, if you think about Facebook, Instagram, incredibly powerful platforms, also TikTok and YouTube, they're investing a lot into social commerce. We haven't really touched on that. They want to keep people on their platform. They're making big plans to make it very easy to purchase on these platforms. So what I think about these social platforms is that they're like the new storefront windows. In the olden days, you'd go to the shopping mall and you browse around or a high street, but now people are browsing on social media. So also, if you just think about it in that way, like how can you create videos where you're getting in front of your audience and really building your authority?
Now, a lot of people listening to this probably would work in QSR, so like a quick service restaurant, had a franchise head office there, and they'd be allocating some money already to B2C side to get people obviously creating videos about having a shake or a coffee and getting into their store. Where I don't see it done, and I just want to ask your opinion on it, is in franchise recruitment. So a lot of brands, that's what I do. We do a lot of recruitment short form, but a lot of brands don't. So do you want to talk about maybe the potential or maybe some ideas that, let's say QSR, like quick service restaurants who do need someone who's on can get 250, 500K worth of capital. But I think there's a bit of an assumption that those people who have that money don't use social media is the other assumption I sort of hear a bit. So do you want to just talk to that aspect of it about that sort of side of it?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. I think there's different ways that you could approach it. So you could be creating the employee generated content and put it on your own social channels, right? So you're one that's also targeting consumers or your customers. Or what other companies are doing. So I see this with Accor Hotels is a good example. They've created a whole profile, which was all about recruitment. And I think that's just a signal of like, how valuable they see social media to attract the right talent. So look, let's just imagine that it's the using your own social profile and you want to add the content there. I would be looking at creating videos about your story, how to get started, what's the process like, what's the benefits as well, what's the support, and start with those videos, and then as you get comments back in the comments section, you can start answering questions as well. I would also go back to that example I shared where I was just talking about the university where it's a Q&A style of video, because you can that's a really good one to get started where you have a few different questions and people are answering those questions so that you can stitch that together. And that's a really nice engaging video that you can post where it's genuinely talking about people's experience in the organization. So yeah. So I
And
think a good one to look at is Cheesecake Shop. I had a look at their content. They've got a lot of different profiles as well, and they're featuring a lot of their staff in employee generated content. It's a good one.
that's great. And I think a lot of customers of those QSR brands become franchisees as well. So just having something on there where people actually know you do have franchise opportunities is
Yeah.
a really good thing. And I think the other thing short form is like if one of those videos blow up, you can reach 1 million people or 500,000 people as well. And you're going to get that seed plant up that people might then go to your website and browse more, becoming a franchisee or whatever it is. And I think that's a really underutilized tool by people in franchising, especially when it comes to recruitment. I was going to say as well with your with founders and CEOs, what are your thoughts about founders and CEOs with short form? Because I've seen a trend now. We obviously do it with my boss, but I've slowly started seeing founders and CEOs doing a little bit more of it. So what would you sort of say around that and maybe the benefits to it?
Look, I think it's a huge opportunity. I'm pretty active on my TikTok profile. I share a lot of insight and advice there as well. And then we also post on our Oystery Media profile. We do a lot of employee generated content. But look, if we think about marketing 20 years ago, if you were going to market, you would have to spend a lot of money for a print ad, and you weren't able
Yeah.
to really track that at all. So yes, it can seem overwhelming that there's a lot of social platforms, it's short video, and it can be scary, but it is a huge opportunity. And just going back to that gym analogy, you just have to get the reps in. So if you are a CEO or founder, you're probably, one of the best people to market the business. And if you're sharing your real, experience, and I think that also just sends a message to your team, especially as a founder. I know with my team that we've instilled now that we're all posting on our Oystery Media TikTok profile. So you sort of, I just think lead by example. And I think that people for a small business do want to see who the founder is. Like they're curious about that story. So, that's a huge benefit for a founder-led business, especially when you're competing against these big organizations. So, taking the example of my company, Oystery Media, where we can't compete against like a Group M and some of these big agencies, but they're not founder-led. So what's unique about us is sort of what we stand for, and also for the different faces in our company.
Yeah, and people will follow you over the company account as well. And that's the thing, people
Yes.
might follow you, and that's the thing that gets invested in the business and wants to use you. And I think it's like it's really easy to see online now. You can look at Simon Beard, who sold Culture Kings, Jane Liu from Showpo. You've got David Fogarty from Shark Tank and the Audience. You got Nick Bell and all that. And they're all doing short form content now. Even though they made all their millions, they don't really need to do it. I think they're going more. They made all this money and no one knows who they are. So they want to maybe get a little bit famous and get opportunities via that. But the content, I think the thing with the founder-led content, like I think people overthink it. So we do a lot of stuff with Jim, and I literally just ask him negative comments from our TikTok, and that's it, one shot, bang, we just posted, and people might like it or hate it. But like you can get, we reached like 200,000 people last week with a video just talking about fees. Now for us, that's very valuable because a lot of people who might think gyms takes 50% or 40% of your income, and we can do a 1 minute piece of content that literally takes 1 minute to do. And then hopefully maybe have that 40,000 people, depending if they stay to the end, will learn that no, that's not the case. So for us, that's really, really valuable. And then hopefully, I don't know how we'll get the attribution for it if they do become a franchisee, but that's the sort of, I think for founders and CEO, there's some massive opportunities, that founder-led thing. And as you said, that separate it's another marketing asset now with that personal brand, even that,
And just to add on to that as well, like one thing I see companies make, this sort of make it quite challenging with creating short video. Also, founders as well, or CEOs. Just one piece of advice is that you're not creating a Hollywood movie. Just as long as it hits the brand guidelines. And what I mean by that, it's you're showing up okay. There's no swearing, etc. Just get it posted. And I think you've done a tremendous job with Jim's group because you're posting quite a lot. So for me, I try and post like 5 times a week, maybe 6 times, and I batch post. That just works for me. Some people like to do it on the go where they're talking, in the office or on the way to work or something. So you just have to find your style and get the content out, and you'll see what pops, because no one can really predict what's going to get
That's correct. Yeah, that's a great point. I think that's a really good point because I think the reason why I asked you, because I talk to a lot of people and they come up to me and they go, oh, we want to do what you do, but we get too many roadblocks, that messaging or can't say this, can't say that, and they just give up in the end. And I just want to, so how, do you obviously your clients come to you, they want to do short form video and you're the expert and they go like that, but how do you then, because I'm presuming you must get some pushback sometimes where they're maybe not happy with 2 words in it and they want you to edit it, or there's some messaging they don't. How do you sort of deal with that sort of political or that pushback sometimes? A lot of people listening to this who work in marketing at franchise brands will be dealing with that all the time. So they'll agree with everything what you're saying and they'll get budget, but then they go and do it and then someone higher up kills it, or they want it all changed, or how do you deal with that, or what would you advise around that?
Yeah. So what we do, we actually write out the script. So we've got a template.
Yeah.
So just to talk, sort of top line. So we have like the opening. We call it the opening of the video. We call it the first frame. I don't believe that it's like 3 seconds anymore. It's the first thing that someone sees. You need to be able to earn their attention. So we sort of think about what's happening there and what's the person saying, or like how are we creating that curiosity gap. And then the next part is the middle of the video. And then if it needs a call to action, follow for more tips or something. So the way that we, I guess, get around it is that we would get the content signed off, like the scripts signed off. We also do a lot of education. So, this is our craft, and we make sure that the marketer or the director, that they're very comfortable with the script. And then also when the content comes back, we also check it as well. So if there was something that needed to be changed, of course we can, tweak it. But there is you just have that in the back of the mind that if the video is too polished, people will scroll away.
So where were we? Just before we keep going.
I think we were just sort of rounding off a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're talking about I can't remember. Forgot. I think we're talking about more about maybe pushback, but you're saying about your process, how you get all the scripts approved. Probably that's the way to get it through. Have all the videos scripted, get them approved by management before anything gets done, so people don't experience maybe some pushback. Because probably the thing is we don't script, and I've got the free rein with the boss, which is probably a little bit different. Whereas people might I'd say, is your advice maybe then obviously if they're going to do short form content with founders, CEOs, or just in general, everything should be scripted, then approved first, then you do it so you don't come into those sorts of things.
I'll just caveat this. We work with a lot of big organizations. For example, we work with like UPS, have got certain guidelines, work with the Hilton hotels, 3M, etc. So that's why we take that approach. Another approach you could take is just ensuring that everyone's on the same page, meaning that you can have a kickoff call where you talk about the different content pillars and different ideas to create videos. I think what often happens is that if there's someone higher up and they're declining videos, they might have never been on TikTok, or they might not know, how you create a really engaging short video. And so I think that there just often needs to be that education at the start. So a big tip could be that if you're getting started, you might all do a little bit of research and share 5 short videos that you think are really great and could work for your brand. And then that will help everyone get on the same page about, what styles of video content do they like, and get people to look on TikTok or Instagram as well. And then that's where you can get the alignment on what the sort of tone is in the look. And is there anything that needs to be discussed then and upfront? And then everyone can start filming. And that's what I would strongly advise. And then something else that's worth considering is also incentivizing as well, because everyone's got other priorities and tasks that they have to do. So just give it some thought with how you're doing incentives. So it could be calling out people in the weekly newsletter, or maybe you do like a virtual trophy and recognize people that have done great videos. So it's worth thinking about that and creating that culture as well to ensure people continue to create these videos.
Yeah, or bribe them, cash incentive. We're doing a cash incentive for Jim's Market at the moment. So
yeah,
bit of a bribe always works. And I was going to say, you mentioned something before, which I think really goes against what people are taught. the 2 to 3 seconds thing, I think I agree with you on TikTok. It's far less than that when you look at the retention of it. So how, like for me, like just if you don't have that first frame, like that, like for me, everything else doesn't matter. That seems to be like, is that the most important thing for you? Is that first frame, or what would you say about that?
Yeah, look, it's one of the most important things. But the next part is just holding the viewer's attention as well, because they can, if you don't have, like if you're not doing those pattern interruptions, people will scroll away. So yes, I guess the first frame is most important because you need to stop the scroll, and then you need to sort of give that value, whether that's educational value, it's something that's entertaining. Maybe it's something emotional. You just want to sort of give that thought. You don't want to just do clickbait and then people, know that that's your style. You need to have that reward.
Now, do you have a typical pattern that you go with on your videos in terms of scripting? Like, is it a problem agitate solution, or how do you do it in the short form video world?
Yeah, we've got a pretty robust template that we use. There's a lot in there, but just in terms of highline, we really focus on the opening of the video. So we think about the first frame. What's the visual cue? What do we want the person to be doing? Is there big text on the screen or that billboard text, as I mentioned? What's the music? And then we'll go into the middle of the video. What's being shared? We share some pointers. And then we also will look at what the music is as well. So another quick tip is that you can also change the background music throughout the video. And that again, is a really good way to hold the attention. And then we think about the end of the video, like, is there a call to action? Do we want it to end sharply and get someone curious? There are a few elements that we look at when we create videos.
And what sort of video, and like a business goes, yeah, I want to try this sort of thing. Like, what would you recommend to them as like a amount of content they should get? It should be 30, should be 20. Like, what would you sort of advise around that?
Yeah. Okay. So if it's you're already posting on social media and you've got an account set up, I would recommend 4 pieces of content minimum a week, short videos. If it's a new account, you want to be posting more than that. And the reason for that is that let's just imagine someone lands on your profile. You just want to have some videos there so it looks like you've got more content on your feed rather than there just being like 3 videos, for example. So yeah. And also just to add on to that, the more you do, the better you'll become and you'll be able to turn videos around. So for me personally, I was terrible when I first started creating videos. I had no idea what I was doing. No one goes to university to learn. No one's born with a phone in their hand. So, there's so much free content out there. You need to just practice and you'll get better. And so now it will take me about an hour and a half to do sort of six videos.
Yeah.
You can get quite quick once you understand what you're doing.
Now, what are some accounts that people can look at to see your work? RMIT Training, I think that's one.
They rebranded, so it's RMIT Up. You can have a look at them. We've been working with them for, probably over 2 years now.
Yep.
And some other accounts include Beyblade. That's the spinny top, the toy brand. You can have a look at their TikTok account. We work across Beyblade UK. So if you look at Beyblade UK, also the French account, Beyblade France, and also Spanish. So that's a good one to look at because you'll also see the differences in how we target based on or create content across different regions as well. So we do a lot of language translation.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
And if people want to learn more about your business, is it just they chuck into Google Oystery Media? Or what's the website URL?
Yeah, sure. So it's oysterymedia.com, or they can also reach out to me or connect with me on LinkedIn, which is Melissa Laurie. Or if, you can also follow me on TikTok as well.
I think if you work in franchising, you want to get a head around it. I know you do training and consultations as well. So just even from a training and consultation point of view, just reach out to Mel and she'll be able to educate you on it. And then from there, obviously, we hope you do some content with Mel's agency, but at least do a training or a consult. I think it's really, really important because, as you said at the start, it's not going anywhere. This is only going to increase. And and your quality of your short form has to increase, I think, as well. Not it doesn't have to be in terms of production value, but I mean in terms of, as you said before, pattern interruption, holding the person from when they go into this thing, and pattern interruption. That's only you have to be more creative. So you're going to definitely help with that as a marketer if you're working on franchising.
Yeah, definitely. You need to get really crisp with what you're saying. Like often people can just waffle.
Yep.
You want to think about we think about like the opening sentence, then the glue, like what comes next to hold the viewer's attention, then the middle of the video. So things like that. And also the pace, your tone. There's a lot that goes into it. But once you know it, you know it.
Absolutely. Please reach out to Mel, and thank you very much for your time. So I really do appreciate it. If you don't know, if you search Melissa's name, there's a Social Media Examiner podcast I think you did, which is great. And I know you gave a talk there too. So please check that out as well for some really good information, and follow Mel on socials, because Mel does a lot of videos on TikTok and things like that with algorithm updates and all this sort of stuff. It's really good advice. So please check her out.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mel.